Being slapped by that pro wrestler gave me ear pain. A doctor told me it was a jurosomatic illness. What's that?
This guy, caught on tape here lifting heavy weights, has been collecting disability payments. He and his lawyers say his left arm is injured. Also, the warning label on this razor says, never use while sleeping. Would you ever use one of these while asleep?
No, I wouldn't.
I have a husband and no.
What's the stupidest warning label? The label on this neck pillow says, keep it away from children. This could suffocate them.
Lawsuit abuse. That's our show tonight.
And now, John Stossel.
I've reported on lawsuit abuse for years, but I keep coming back to it because the evil just goes on and on. And I'm embarrassed that over the years, some of my salary has been paid by the very people I complain about.
Have you been hurt in a car accident?
If you've been hurt in a car wreck,
more benefits, higher cash awards.
These sue-happy lawyers cost us a ton, and then they act like we should thank them for protecting us. And it's the fear of their lawsuits that has many nasty unintended consequences. We'll start this show with one of the less important ones, because frankly it's more fun. Stupid warning labels. Bob Dorigo Jones runs something called the Wacky Warning Label Contest. If you submit the one label voted the dumbest, you win $1,000. And after reviewing hundreds of entries, Bob has narrowed it down to his 5 favorites. And again, this year he agrees to let you, our studio audience, pick the stupidest. All right. You don't get to keep the $1,000, though. That goes to the person who submitted the product. So, Bob, show us, what are your 5 finalists this year?
Well, this is an electric razor. It has a warning label we've seen on a couple of products over the 15 years we've done this. It says, do not use while sleeping. Maybe somebody's trying to get an early start on the day.
And this happens because, why does this happen? And I thought I had the answer, but somebody sued because they did something while asleep?
Yes, anybody who makes a product in America is constantly looking over their shoulder for the next lawsuit because they've heard about lawsuits like the guy who was playing basketball, dunked the ball, somehow managed to catch his teeth in the net, so he sued the net maker and walked away with $50,000.
And this just kills opportunity for people because that $50,000 could have been spent for something useful. But to be clear, that doesn't happen often. Usually ridiculous suits like that get thrown out. But even paying your lawyer to get him thrown out can cost $50,000.
That's right. Even when you win, you lose in America. You might ultimately win the lawsuit, but you've blown your life savings in defending your good name against that lawsuit. So we hear that all the time. And so if you don't put a warning label, you will be sued. And that's why we see the most unusual warning labels. Here we have a warning label. Here's a great little product. Let's say you're driving down the road, you have a wonderful idea, and you want to write a note to yourself. Well, you can take this little wheel mate, attaches to a steering wheel of the car, but it says, warning, never use this product while driving.
Now, I mean, that would seem like a reasonable, looking at it, a reasonable warning, because you don't want people using them while driving. But as the company explained when we called them, they said it's impossible to use while driving. The wheel has to be upside down to install the thing. So the car would drive around in circles if you ever tried it. But their lawyers said, put it on just in case.
That's right. That's what we hear all the time. The lawyers say you'll be sued if you don't. One year we had a warning label on a fishing lure that said harmful if swallowed. Same thing. The lawyer said you have to put it there or you could be sued.
Product number 3.
A lot of us, people in your audience will have seen this. This is a little neck pillow that parents will put around the neck of their infants in the car.
And this is so the child can sleep or just be more comfortable?
It's actually safe. It keeps their head stable, keeps it from going back and forth and hurting the child. But the warning label actually says, keep this product away from infants and children. It's kind of hard to use it then.
We called the company. They didn't respond. Here, let's do this one next. This is number 4, the electric skillet. And the warning says, caution, griddle surface may be hot during and after cooking. I would hope so.
They'd probably be sued if it wasn't
hot. It's a griddle. be sued if it didn't get
Well,
hacked.
that's what it's a catch-22 in America. Sometimes you warn against something that's obvious, and somebody will say, since you produced a product that you knew could hurt somebody, you're admitting that you created a risky product. So sometimes even their own warning label is used against them in a court of law.
And a lawsuit is about winning. It's not necessarily about the truth. It's about whose lawyer is better, slicker, and can convince a jury.
That's
or
right.
just threaten to get that far, and you'd have to pay $100,000 to defend yourself.
That's right. 9 out of 10 lawsuits in America are settled. So they don't necessarily, the plaintiff lawyer who files a lawsuit doesn't care if it goes all the way to a jury because they know that they can
prefer it doesn't.
Right. They can drag it out through months and years in the courts, and they know that they're going to squeeze every penny out of that person that they're suing in legal bills, because not only is the lawyer that's hired for the person who claims they were injured, but the person who was sued has to hire their own lawyer, so that everybody in the legal profession wins except for the person getting sued.
And to be clear, it's the defense lawyers who like to stretch it out because they get paid maybe by the hour. The longer it goes, the better they do. The plaintiff's lawyers, they want a quick settlement, quick deal. All right, product number 5, this globe. What's the deal?
This actually says, these globes should not be referred to for navigation.
And we talked to the company. They said, we know our world is ever-changing. As a result, we would not recommend it be used for educational purposes, but merely as a decorative item. So it's like they're cowering for some problem. And this is our legal system. It's supposed to help victims. Why are you so angry about this? It helps victims, they say.
Right. We get a good laugh at these warning labels, but the bottom line is that even if I'm never sued, you're never sued, we're going to pay because all of these products cost more because of the litigation that's happening in America all the time. Not only do the products cost more, but worst, a lot of products are never brought to market because the inventor is so afraid that they'll be sued that they just shy away from bringing it to market. I'll give you a good example. There's a product that a lot of your audience may have never seen. It's an amazing circular saw that will stop in an instant if it touches skin. Now, I talked to the inventor. He said he tried for years to try to get stores to sell that, but the liability insurance was so high that he couldn't do it. Now, you had people this whole time losing fingers, losing hands because of these injuries. And here you had a product that could have saved their fingers, but it wasn't on the market because of litigation.
And because a product like that, which is about a dangerous thing, is the biggest target for lawsuits. So it's these things we need most that we often lose.
That's
they don't
right.
even introduce it. So it's that and the cost and these warning labels, which seem harmless, except one result is then you don't read the stuff you ought to read.
Right. The plaintiff lawyers claim that they're making America safer by filing all these lawsuits. I would argue that they're making America less safe because as warning labels become so long, we're tuning them out. So the warning labels we need to read are getting lost in the jumble of the common sense warning labels like the one on a scooter that says, warning, this product moves when used.
And talk about long labels. You ever look at a birth control pill label? Any of you happen to have one? I happen to have one here, actually. This is it. Tiny fine print, both sides of the page. So the doctor doesn't read it. This doesn't make us safer. And if you did read it, you wouldn't want the pill anymore.
Well, if you did read that, you'd probably fall asleep, and like you said, you wouldn't need that pill.
So we don't read the things that might make us safer. And stepladders, they have 40 warning labels on them now, like don't dance on them wearing wet shoes or something. I mean, all these little stickers. Take a look at the stepladder you have at home.
Well, we think that the 3-foot stepladder may be an endangered species because it's not long enough to put all the warning labels on.
Last year's winner was a dust mask that warned, will not provide oxygen.
Right. It's a common $2 paper dust mask. Who would think that supplied oxygen? But we were told by their lawyer if that wasn't there, they could be sued.
30 years ago, law schools taught budding lawyers that, a lawsuit is expensive, long, hurts people. This is a last resort.
Right.
Today?
Well, today, many law schools teach lawsuits are a good thing.
Well, thank you, Bob. A lawsuit's now filed in America every 2 seconds. Coming up, the audience will pick the wackiest warning label and award the $1,000. But next, a new way lawyers increase the cost of everything you buy. My next guest calls them terrorists, but he's fighting back. Today, American lawyers have a new scam. You invent something. You start selling it, you make some money. Suddenly, you find yourself being sued by a company that claims it holds a patent on what you sell. Now, how can that be? How can they sue you for something you invented? Well, let's ask someone who was sued. Drew Curtis is the founder of the popular news website Fark.com. So, Drew, what happened?
Yeah, so basically, I had a patent troll come and file a lawsuit against, they went after me.
Or what, patent troll?
Yes,
that's
patent
what
troll.
These guys are called.
Yeah, basically patent trolls are usually shell companies that go and purchase patents. They rarely invent them. And then they look around and they try to find people who do something similar, and then they sue them trying to get a settlement of some kind out of the deal.
They really produce anything either, but they got the patent.
Right, exactly.
And so you were sued along with Yahoo, MSN, Reddit, AOL, TechCrunch, and others.
Yes, that's right.
By a company called Gooseberry Natural Resources.
Yeah, I think there's a random company name generation website they went to and pulled it out. But yeah, we checked these guys out. It turns out they just had no prior activity. They had acquired a patent, which was for the creation of a website, which would you enter some text in, and then it turns it into a news release, and then it emails it to people. And that's it.
A patent for the creation and distribution of news releases via email. Which
exactly.
Lots of people do. And explain Fark, for people who don't know. What is it?
Sure. Basically, it started in 1999. I own 100% of it. It is run out of Kentucky, which surprises a lot of people. And basically, it's just a list of stuff I read in the news that I think's funny. And sometimes it's not that funny, and so we make it funnier.
And, okay, I guess that's a business model these days. I'm glad it works for you.
Seems to work.
And so they come in and they say, no, we own this patent. We're going to take it over, or just pay us to go away, or buy the patent. What did they say to you?
So basically, they came in and they filed the lawsuit simultaneously against myself and these other 8 companies, and they said, you guys are in violation of our patent. And they actually tried to get an injunction for us to stop all activity, which luckily they didn't approve that. I realized pretty early on that the way that the patent was worded, it talks about news releases. And it turns out in journalism, as you well know, the news release can only be a press release, which is not what I do at all. I link to news and I make it funny. That's it. And so I knew instantly that there was an opportunity here because we didn't violate this patent.
So you felt confident you could fight back. Most companies never fight back.
Yes, exactly. Well, because it's scary.
You tried to get these other guys to fight back.
Right. The problem first is that in any court case, especially federal cases, the judge can rule in a definition that a definition of a word is something else. They could actually rule blue is green. But the main problem that they have in most of these cases is that it is conventional wisdom that it is cheaper to settle these cases than it is to continue to defend them. Because successful defense, if you win, will cost about $2 million and it'll take 18 months. And that's a long time.
$2 million and 18 months to win.
To win, that's right. If you lose, it gets a lot worse. You could lose your entire business. You could be forced to pay a licensing fee. You could be ruled a willful infringer, which is the most dire outcome of all. And it's just really messy. And so rather than deal with that, they write a settlement check and get out.
All right, so most companies settle. You didn't. Also, you're in the news business, so you had another way of fighting back.
Yeah, well, so because I've got contacts in the news business, I could actually point out, like, hey, everybody, here's what's going on. This is actually happening. One thing that happened pretty early on in the case is that the plaintiff's attorney contacted my attorneys, and he was really mad. And he said, can you tell your defendant to stop having people call my house and cuss out my wife and kids, because I'd really appreciate him not doing that. Now, my attorneys came to me and they said, well, they had to check first. They're like, are you doing this? I'm like, no, are you kidding me? Why? That's ridiculous. I wouldn't do that. I said, but in the interest of disclosure, tell him I am more than happy to go on my website, which is read by 4 million people a month, and say, hey, everyone, under no circumstances should anyone call this guy's house. Here's the phone number.
And the lawyers said?
And they said they advised him, and he decided not to take me up on that. So that kind of worked out for him at any rate.
All right, so you fought this suit, and they dropped it.
Yeah, so what happened was that about 6 months in, my strategy was basically to sort of flip the playbook. So what I started doing was being really, really annoying and really, really obnoxious. So what happened was 6 months in, when it came time to file for discovery, we filed instantly. And we asked for a number of things, including the first thing was, show us evidence of infringement. One of the other things was we dug around and we found the names of 10 individuals who may or may not have been related to the ownership of this company. And that was a clear shot across the bow because that was the next thing we were going to attempt to do is pierce the corporate veil and go after these people specifically personally. So they blinked, basically. They call up out of the blue and they said, so we've had some kind of an internal reorganization over here, and so we're going to give your client one last chance to give us the best possible settlement deal you guys are willing to offer. And I said nothing.
And they
accepted.
They dropped it. So you won. Except in America, under our system, you lose when you win because you still were out $100,000 in legal fees.
It was a lot of money. It was, I mean, speaking of job creation issues, I could have actually hired a few people on the amount of money I spent on this.
Now, these patent troll lawsuits are up. We have a graph of how they're increasing. These clever parasites are suing more often all the time. And you're one of the few people who's allowed to talk about this. Explain that.
So what happened was that here's what this was going to look like if the settlement had actually gone through. There's a settlement offer, you have to sign it, and there's always a non-disclosure agreement. So, which means I couldn't talk about the case.
So you refused to sign that?
Yes. In fact, well, it was a gambit, actually. I said, let's strike the NDA in the settlement and see if they go for it. And my attorney said, no way. And I said, well, we'll give it a shot. And I guess he didn't read it or something. They left it out. So if you're interested in finding out why, I'd be kind of curious if you feel like calling them. I can give you the phone number.
We will. But all these other companies, they say, okay, we won't talk about it. And the wars go on.
Yeah.
A Boston University study says $80 billion in damage in America so far. Your conclusion is don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yes,
you call them terrorists.
Yes, and in fact, that $80 billion figure is last year by itself. The amount of money that keeps getting lost in patent troll lawsuits keeps escalating because these guys are operating like terrorists. If you take the Abu Sayyaf terrorists in the Philippines, it starts out one day, 3 guys are in a bar saying, hey, let's kidnap people and make money off of this. And then they did, and they got a ransom. And then they hired 2 more people. And then they did it again, and they hired more people, and now it's an armed military insurrection, and that's exactly what's happening with patent trolls.
Okay, thank you, Drew Curtis. At least they don't yet kidnap people.
They're working on it.
Next, why I once filed a lawsuit after this guy beat me up. And the odd thing that happened
what
next.
What the hell's wrong with you? That's open hand slap, huh? You think it's fake? Huh? What do you mean?
Personal injury lawyers fight tort reform by saying, who but we will deter bad companies from hurting you, bad doctors, and who but we will get compensation for your injuries. And it's a good sales pitch, but it's filled with deceit for lots of reasons. But for now, I'll just focus on one nasty unintended consequence of the trial lawyer's work. I experienced this one myself. I once hired a personal injury lawyer so I could sue someone. I won a settlement. People say this proves I'm a hypocrite because I criticize these lawsuits, but I don't think I'm a hypocrite because I acknowledge some of these lawsuits are useful. Now, I sued Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation because I was told that he and the WWF instructed one of their performers to do this to me.
Is this a good business?
Yeah, it's a good business. I wouldn't be in it if it wasn't.
Why is it a good business?
Because only the tough survive. That's the reason you ain't in it. And this punk holding the camera reading he ain't in it. Reading these rednecks out here ain't in it because it's a tough business.
That's terrific.
Wait, is that all you got?
I'll ask you the standard question. You know?
Standard question.
I think this is fake.
You think it's fake? What's that? Is that fake? Huh? What the hell's wrong with you? That's open hand slap, huh? You think it's fake? You come like that. Huh? What do you mean? Fake.
After that, I crawled away. I'd fantasized I should have hit the guy with my microphone, but that would have been stupid. He was 6'8", weighed 280 pounds. His name is Dave Schultz, for those of you who care about these things. Anyway, after that, I had ear pain. For more than a year, loud noises hurt my ears. So
I sued. I thought they should be taught they can't beat up reporters who point out that pro wrestling is fake. And as part of the lawsuit, the defendant has you go to see their doctor, an ear specialist in my case, and their doctor, without examining me, said, "I think this is a jurosomatic illness." A what? I asked. Jurosomatic, he said. It means you're holding on to your pain because you're involved in a lawsuit. I was furious. I said to him, "How dare you accuse me of that without even examining me?" And he backed down. But you know what? He was probably right. Because after we settled the suit and I got paid, my pain slowly went away. So maybe my injury was jurosomatic. Do people hold on to pain because they're involved in lawsuits? Why not I ask this orthopedic surgeon? He no longer practices full-time. He stepped down to a less useful occupation. He's now a U.S. Senator from Wyoming. So jurosomatic illness, can you imagine this?
Well, actually, it's something I learned about in medical school and in my residency training, seen in practice, and it's we used to call it the green poultice. A poultice was something used to apply to an area of pain for hoping that it gets better, and green being the money application. But this is legitimate injury, as in your case, legitimate pain that hung on for a long time, and people believe that pain is going to be permanent. It does seem, though, that if there is a lawsuit filed, that there's until that drags through the courts or a settlement, which is a long-term process, the pain continues. And then only once that is settled does maybe the stress of all that go away, and then the pain go away as well.
And the effect I could feel on me was that when you're involved in a lawsuit, you think about it all the time. You're furious. You're furious at the opposing lawyers. I was furious at the wrestler. I think about my ear pain. You're less likely to go on with your life.
Well, you're stuck until that issue is resolved, and you get fixated on it. There's high anxiety related to it, additional stress, and I believe that the pain continues until that comes to some resolution.
Now, a British psychiatrist wrote, "If you pay people to suffer, they will suffer. Injuries that would be self-limiting become permanently crippling. The litigant, formerly healthy, rapidly succumbs to every kind of unprovable ailment. Headache, loss of concentration, dizziness, depression. When a man says his whole life has been ruined by some accident, I know without having to ask I'm in the presence of litigation. It turns hypochondriasis into a way of life." This really rang home to me. And these kinds of ailments, not so much ear pain, but dizziness, headache, back pain, these are these things that are hard for doctors to cure. They may be psychological.
And there is usually some real cause that began the thing in the first place, but it hangs on for a lot longer than one would naturally expect. And I think it's related to the anxiety or the tension and being under the stress of a pending lawsuit.
Now, before you were a senator, you were an orthopedic surgeon. The ordinary people would think, that's clear, you fix the guy's bone, he gets better. But in orthopedics, there's a lot of this too, right? That there was even one study where they gave people fake knee operations and they got better.
Well, there are a lot of aches and pains that we take care of in orthopedic surgery, and there are a lot of injuries. Car wrecks where the pain just won't get better, and you're trying to figure out why isn't it gotten better. You can
person's wearing a neck brace.
All of the different things, using a cane to walk, a back brace, taking medication, asking you for muscle relaxers, pain pills, whole host of things. You say, this person should be better by now, and yet I can't find a cause, nothing I can actually physically put back together as an orthopedic surgeon, nothing that has a surgical response. And often, once this case is settled, the pain goes away.
Thank you, Senator John Barrasso from Wyoming. Next, another way lawsuits extend apparent illness, fraud. Here it is, caught on undercover tape. One of the sleazier sides of law, in addition to personal injury work, is workers' comp. People claim they were injured on the job and then, with the help of a lawyer, argue that instead of working, they should get monthly payments from the state. Of course, some really are injured, but many are like the fireman who claimed lung disability but then competed in triathlons. Now, I assume the lawyers suspect that their clients fake injuries, but they don't want to know, because asking skeptical questions might offend the client, and they can't make money if they lose the client. The Chamber of Commerce says a quarter of workers' comp claims are bogus. I don't know if that's true, but Paul Colbert says it is. He runs a company that secretly follows people who file dubious claims and videotapes them doing things like this. This weightlifter claims he hurt his left shoulder and therefore says he can't work, but his left arm sure looks strong here. So, Paul, what's the story behind this?
So, John, we got a tip-off that this claimant was going to be doing some light cardio, and clearly from the video you can see, typically the doctor...
use some heavy cardio, actually.
Absolutely. I mean, with a left shoulder injury like that, I mean, I'm a pretty strong guy myself, but I can tell you throwing half of that stack would certainly cause an injury to even the strongest person.
He was collecting workers' comp. He claimed he felt a pop while moving a box, and he had no mobility in his left shoulder.
We call it 0-0. So he was 0 impact to his spine and 0 weightlifting, and that's his capacity.
And you got that video with a device like this soda.
Absolutely. So, and we're not really afraid to show our technology. There's an antenna, a wireless transmitter inside this cup. We utilize these devices for just about everything. I mean, we can conform a camera and put it in an item that you would never suspect. So for anyone that's anticipating or possibly considering committing insurance fraud, we will catch you. I promise. We will.
And I assume you and the audience were not aware of this, but earlier when I showed you around here, you were using the secret soft drink.
Absolutely. Just to show you how unassuming this stuff is, we walked right in and started to document your audience, and this is how easily we can obtain the same footage on claimants and other individuals that are also unsuspecting and committing fraud.
So watch it. Let's look at another case. This man also claimed to have a non-productive left arm and can't earn income like he used to. So what's he doing here?
So we got a tip-off that he might possibly be back in the construction industry, and as you can see from here, the way he's utilizing bolt cutters to cut the rebar off, probably at well over 600 pounds worth of rebar on the front of that forklift, and clearly you can see he grabs a hold of it.
So do you then, after you catch him, go up to him and confront him?
No. No, of course not. We don't want to get shot. I mean, there's some folks. We basically will turn our evidence over to the insurance carrier or who we.
Those
were
are your
hired by.
clients.
Correct. The insurance carriers and defense lawyers are who we. So not all lawyers are bad. Defense lawyers are good.
Some of them are bad too. But what percent of cases do you find fraud?
We're at 79% this year already, and those are.
So that doesn't mean that 79% of workers' comp cases are fraudulent, but you focus on the ones where someone is suspicious.
79% of the files that we've investigated this year are showing fraud.
But the ones that go to you are where the insurance company has a reason to be suspicious.
Absolutely, and that's something where we coach them on red flags to look for like suspicious claims. Some of the things you would look for is the individual says that they're at home all the time, but yet they never answer their telephone, or if they do answer their telephone, it sounds like they're in a club.
And people who immediately file with an attorney, that's correct. A red flag.
Very, very quickly, you look for those folks that are going out and gathering counsel.
Next case is a guy who sued a grocery store for negligence. He says he slipped on a can in the store, injured his back, has to avoid any impact on his lower back. Look what you caught him doing. And it's sort of hard to see in the video, but this was a machine that really shook this guy's back up.
Correct. As he starts to dig and the claw digs in, as you can see, the back end of the excavator comes up, and then, I mean, it slams down with some pretty significant force. I mean, we joked around and called him the human shock absorber. I mean, because he just consistently, I mean, we have hours of this. So it's not just, 5-10 seconds. This is hours of continuous compression to his spine.
One last case. A worker claimed to be incapacitated by low back pain, can't drive or mow the lawn, and yet you found he got another job doing construction work with a jackhammer.
Not only is the jackhammer enough to rattle your teeth out of your head, he has a back injury. He's currently collecting, he's double dipping is what we call this. He's collecting money from the previous employer, and now he was able to pick up a position with the city municipality. So for me, that draws a couple concerns. Is one, are the municipalities doing enough background and due diligence on these folks before they're hiring them, because they've just hired a liability?
Now, he's got a lawyer. Most all of them have lawyers. Maybe the lawyer doesn't know?
You and I both know that's not the truth.
Why do you think it's not the truth?
Because I've seen these folks get coached up in court. These attorneys are very well versed at how to coach these claimants on what to look for.
And you find they talk to them about cleaning themselves.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Cleaning is a term that's utilized for claimants as they're going to and fro, running their errands. Before they leave the house, an attorney would tell them, make a couple U-turns, pull into your neighbor's driveway, give yourself an opportunity to see if there is anybody trailing you. When you come home, make a couple deliberate U-turns. Look over your shoulder. Just give the impression that you're at least aware, even if you don't see anyone. So these folks are being coached up in that aspect.
All right, so be aware that if you're thinking of cheating, you too, let this be a warning to you. Paul Colbert and his cameras will catch you. Thank you, Paul. Up next,
thank you, John.
Who wins $1,000 for pointing out this year's wackiest warning label? Will it be the guy who sent in this globe with the warning, do not use this for navigation?
No way.
I definitely wouldn't use this for direction.
No, I think they're dumbing us down.
Now, who wins the $1,000 for submitting this year's wackiest warning label? Bob Dorigo Jones of Center for America picked his top 5 and has again decided to let you, our studio audience, pick the winners. So, who votes for the razor that says, never use this thing while sleeping? All right, some of you. How about the neck pillow that says, keep this away from children? All right, some of you, fewer, I think. How about the skillet that says, warning, this gets hot? I don't think that's the winner. What about the steering wheel desk, stupidest warning label that says, should not be used while driving? A couple of you, I think. By process of elimination, we know the globe that says not to be used for navigation. All right, that the globe is the winner, and that means Kelly Watson from Winona, Texas is the winner, and she gets $1,000. Second prize goes to Dave Werner from Milwaukee. He gets $500. Third prize is $250. Now, your questions for my guests, Bob Dorigo Jones, also Drew Curtis from Fark.com, and Paul Colbert, who catches fraud on tape. So, first from my Facebook page, Austin Tyler says, what would it take to make people that file bogus lawsuits pay the legal fees of the defendant, maybe even a fine to the courts?
Good question. That's called a loser pay system. What would it take in America? It probably would take a law that canceled out all political contributions from trial lawyers, because there is so much money. They really
give. They're big.
They give so much money.
Also, they fight for a living. They're good at it. Practice makes perfect. They win in politics.
And actually, the people who support bringing loser pay are afraid to support it because it makes them a target of all the money that the trial lawyers will bring into their races to defeat them.
All right, we're going to talk more about that in a moment, but two in the audience. Yes, sir.
My question is actually for you, John. I was wondering about the wrestler, why he felt he needed to strike you, and you said there was a case or a case outcome of that.
He felt apparently that he should teach reporters a lesson that you shouldn't talk about pro wrestling being faked. And today, we heard that his boss told him to do it. He may have been just so hyped up on speed for his performance that he did it on his own. I'm not sure. And he became a bounty hunter, and I can't find him anymore. And good riddance to the guy. Who else here?
Is there a proper role for these warning labels? They have legitimately, they were forced to do this to kind of save the consumer. So to what extent are they necessary?
Yeah, I would on the microwave popcorn, you want to read the one that says hot. Don't open it like this.
Right. We focus on labels that are common sense. I'll give you an example because we constantly refuse to accept certain funny labels that are submitted to our contest. Here's a good example. On a bottle of PMS Midol, there's a warning label that says do not use if you have an enlarged prostate. Well, if you have a prostate, you're not going to get PMS. So that warning label needs to be there because there may be some guy out there who has a headache so bad he's willing to use his wife's PMS Midol to get rid of that headache. And he needs to be warned if he's got a problem with his, organs that he needs to.
So you agree that some labels are good and fewer would be better because we'd focus on the big ones? Yes.
We, the public, are the ones paying for these unintended consequences. Is there a remedy? Is there a solution for this?
In the case of the patent troll situation, one of the remedies is that everybody stand up and fight these things. These guys continually rearm themselves by winning these lawsuits, and the only way to get rid of them is to fight against them. And that will hopefully do two things. One, hurt the plaintiff's attorneys bringing the lawsuits. But two, there actually is some data, and I'm actually starting to compile it right now, that I've been told after I've been giving this talk to people, that it turns out it is actually cheaper to fight in the end, in aggregate. And so the more people that realize that, the better.
Paul, they aren't asking you questions for some reason, so I'll ask one. Do you ever worry you're going to get beaten up or caught, or do your people ever get caught and get into fights?
I mean, it happens all the time. You're taking fraudulent criminals down, and certainly they're not happy about it, and they'll hire people to track you down.
And you're holding your prop there. You continue to film. You have another one.
This is actually it's a BMW key, but we have all the data cable information in there. We can transmit wireless. This one, as I showed you earlier, this has a wireless transmitter. We can transmit up to 5.
Do you have any friends?
No, I don't. I'm not in the friends business.
Thank you, Bob Dorigo Jones, Drew Curtis of Fark.com, Paul Colbert, who might be videotaping you tomorrow. Coming up, the relationship between breast implants and scary hypodermic needles. It's another casualty of lawsuit abuse. Lawyers criticize me for criticizing lawsuits. As a libertarian, they say I should like lawsuits. Suits are a market solution to problems, a private remedy. That's better than one-size-fits-all government regulation. The private lawyers will punish the bad guys and get compensation for their victims. And that's logical. And I once believed that. Doing consumer reporting when people told me a business ripped them off, I sometimes referred them to personal injury lawyers. I felt self-righteous doing it. The lawyers and I, we were the good guys fighting corporate bullies. But then I watched the lawyers work. Now I see that for every person their lawsuits help, thousands of others are hurt. Now I realize it's the lawyers who are the bullies. Bullies with one heck of a sales pitch.
If you've got a phone, you've got a lawyer.
Remember, there's never an attorney's fee until we get money for you.
Because I am the hammer. They are the nails.
But when the lawyers hammer what he calls nails, everyone, all of you, pay more. Companies raise prices to pay for the lawsuits, and it's life-saving products, the things we need most, that are hit hardest, like pacemakers, prescription drugs. But everything costs a little more to pay for all these guys advertising on TV.
459 cash. 459 cash. Get what's yours.
And the billions in extra cost, that's not the worst part. The worst part is the innovation we don't get to have because companies are so afraid of being sued. Some choose not to risk trying a new product. The FDA has approved a vaccine for Lyme disease, but drug makers won't sell it because they're afraid of lawsuits. You better check yourself for ticks. And wouldn't it be nice if there were a kinder, gentler way to get shots? Well, there is. Companies came up with a gentle silicone coating for hypodermic needles. But after the utterly baseless lawsuits against sellers of silicone breast implants, after they bankrupted the Dow Corning Company, other companies stopped producing the pain-reducing silicone. One company director said, yeah, well, we're sure our product's safe, but we don't want to risk a lawsuit. So today, lawsuits terrorize people, make everything cost more, and deprive us of good stuff. On the other hand, we don't want to ban all lawsuits. Some are useful. Some do provide justice for victims and deter bad companies or bad doctors from doing bad things. So how do we get rid of the bad and keep the good? Some politicians want to cap lawsuits, and that's helped reduce lawsuit abuse costs in a few states where that's been tried. But I don't know that that's fair. California has a $250,000 cap on some damages. But if a company behaves really egregiously, it should pay more. The cap seems arbitrary. I think the best solution is loser pays. That means if I sue you and lose, I have to pay your legal fees. America is one of the only countries where I can sue you and lose and just go ahead and sue you again. I don't even have to say I'm sorry when I lose. In most every other country, I have to pay something to try to compensate you for what my suit did to you. Lawyers call loser pays the English rule, like it's this weird British thing, but it's not. We shouldn't call it the English rule. Loser pays is the rest of the world rule. It's we who have the weird American rule. Now, lawyers say, oh, no, loser pays would discourage people from going to court. And I say, yeah, it would. And that's okay. Lawyers are now so slow and so ruinously expensive, they do so much damage to America, they should be discouraged. Loser pays isn't a cure-all, but it would be a start. That's our show. We'll have a new show next week, Thursday at 9 p.m. on the Fox Business Network. Thanks for watching.